Andrij Parekh is one of the directors for Succession, and he just got his first Emmy nomination for his work on the Hunting episode. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby, and to start off, you directed and you were a cinematographer on both Succession and Watchmen, two shows that did very well at the Emmys this year. So, what was it like on Emmy nomination morning, just seeing how much the industry went for these two shows, and for you in particular getting your first nomination?
I mean, I was ecstatic. Um, I've been a cinematographer for a long time and was given a chance to direct on both Succession and Watchmen. And when I found out, I was actually in Paris shooting a commercial, if you can imagine. So I was out for the afternoon and I didn't have my phone with me. So when I came home, my phone had just sort of exploded when I turned it back on. And it was so delightful, and I was so proud because those are two shows that I've been incredibly happy with and proud to work with. Work with the people that were on those shows, and both experiences were amazing. And yeah, I mean, it was. What do you say? It was. I can't say it was humbling in the least. Put it that way.
Right. Well, for those who don't know or don't remember, the Hunting episode of Succession, it is famous for the Boar on the floor
Yeah.
segment of it. It's this psychological game that Logan is playing to humiliate people, and it was just kind of instantly iconic. People were buzzing about it. There were articles about how to play Boar on the floor. What were kind of the initial discussions about how to properly capture such a big and memorable sequence?
Tony Roach was the writer of the episode, along with Jesse Armstrong, the showrunner. And, when I first got the episode, I was like, wow, this is intense. It's psychological. It's like psychological terror. And I was interested in seeing how far we could push the insanity of it. We had a kind of a safe word on set, talked to all the actors, made sure that everyone was okay with what we were doing. I was asking a lot from the actors, and they really needed to trust me and trust that I would sort of protect them, because the situation is quite awful that you found in Boar on the Floor. And for me, it was like being called out in the 5th grade and having to stand up in front of the school teacher for doing something bad, which is something I very vague, distinctly remember. And Boar on the Floor was, for me, was a chance to sort of sharpen the kind of wit and sadism of the episode. Jesse and Tony were fully sort of on board with what we were doing. And we found this amazing location, which is supposed to be Hungary, but it's actually it's in New York on Long Island. It's a real Hungarian castle built by, I think, a Hungarian magnate in like the 1920s. So we found this location, and we wanted to sort of make it like this medieval haunted house, basically. Chris Knorr, the DP, we sort of came up with this fire-lit environment for the sequence to make it feel very sort of medieval, which I think it comes across really nicely. And it was terrifying. Just watching Brian Cox is always, for me, a pleasure, but it's also terrifying when Brian barks. Like, everyone sort of jumps. He has that effect, that very strong presence, that like hyper testosterone and slightly dangerous presence. But yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, it's palpable. Yeah. There's this kind of real rising in tension throughout the episode that just builds and builds and builds because of Logan trying to figure out who among him is a rat. So how do you kind of manage that arc of building the tension within each scene and having it also build up on a grander scale for the episode?
I would say the tension is very much in the writing. It's there from the beginning. those character arcs are very well laid out by Tony and Jesse and all the writers of Succession. They're really, I mean, I think the best part about the show, aside from the acting and, you know, is the writing. And the writing really lends, it's quite special. It's so sort of King Lear, Shakespeare's King Lear meets Chekhov. You know, there's this element of strong family drama, but then there's this sort of comedic element that breaks it, this sort of pathetic comedic element that really breaks it in an interesting way. Back to tension and building that, you know, it was just sort of laying out the scenes and sort of, you know, every time I get a script, I sort of do a separate character chart. And it's about sort of what every character is doing at any one moment. And just sort of seeing where those, you know, those peaks and valleys are in the characters, and just developing those and working with the actors to get that feeling. But you know, again, it's really in the writing, and it's just we just push it a little bit in the kind of right direction, and hopefully, you know, and that's what the show is.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, since you were primarily a cinematographer also, I was curious about your approach with actors themselves, as far as, you know, there's on Succession, there's so many different characters with all these different motivations that we're following. It's not just like one of these
Yeah.
shows where it's like one character you're following throughout the whole episode. It's almost a dozen, honestly, and it seems like you would have to juggle a lot in terms of making sure that each actor is kind of fulfilling the intention of what's on the page. So I'm just curious how hands-on you are as far as handling the actors on the set.
You know, as I would say, as cinematographer, much less so than as director. You know, I think every actor in that show is very real as a person. You know, they're not sort of, they're relatable as human beings. They're giving, and you know, they're very multifaceted. And I think because the characters come across as so real, it's very easy for the actors to sort of inhabit them, you know, and fully understand what the characters want. And I think each of the actors knows very well, you know, what their character arc is. Um, Again, you know, it's in television, it's really, the writing sort of dictates everything. The writing sort of guides all of us, and we always sort of, you know, we're always going back to the text uh, to check in. You know, we know what the characters have done in their past, and we have a sense of what they might be doing in the future. Um, and that's, you know, it's the kind of, it's the Bible and it's the guide, are those scripts. As cinematographer for the first 3 episodes of season 1, um, you know, I've been a cinematographer now for 20 years, and a lot of my cinematography, I think, has been very sort of actor driven. Uh, I feel like I've always been a great director's ally and sort of ideally, you know, setting a stage for performances to happen. You know, by not overlighting, by lighting very simply, by being able to shoot almost 360 on the sets that I work on. You know, something very important to me, just to give freedom to the actors, to not sort of hem them in with lights that are right there in their face, and you know, with marks that they have to hit. You know, for me, Succession really became film theater, where none of the actors really knew where the camera was in the way that we shot it. You know, we shot it with, at least the beginning, we would shoot with very long lenses, quite distance from the actors. So there was never, the actor never knew when his close-up was, his or her close-up was. What that does is it forces all the actors to sort of be on all the time, because, you know, their performance we may have just used in the previous take and they had no idea. You know, so it really forces an incredible cohesion amongst the actors, and it forces them all to be very, I think, present in the moment. And that's why I think the show feels the way it does.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that, but that makes sense. Um, what is the collaboration process with you and Jesse Armstrong, who is the showrunner, as far as what he wants versus what you are able to contribute?
Jesse gives his directors, I think, a tremendous amount of freedom. Uh, what I think Jesse is incredibly keen on is the tone of the show and not allowing it to turn into either melodrama or slapstick. And riding that fine tension, riding that line of Chekhovian comedy and Shakespearean drama is, it's a tightrope. And he'll be there at the monitor and we'll watch things. And I oftentimes, I think when people are laughing too much at the monitor, that's the stuff that doesn't get used. It's the stuff that feels, I think, when it becomes very truthful. And Jesse's very aware of that. And that's, I think, what I've tried to bring to the show is a sense of sort of emotional truth.
Yeah. Well, you have been a cinematographer for so long. You said a few decades now, but Succession was actually your first big kind of foray into directing beyond short films, at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was it that made you kind of want to make that jump?
I mean, for me, it was, I'd been a cinematographer. I became a cinematographer at school because at NYU Film School, because I realized I didn't have the vocabulary to talk to actors, and they freaked me out. I was terrified of actors for so long. So I was able to, and I very quickly gravitated toward the camera. I was able to hide sort of behind the eyepiece, which was wonderful because I also liked being on set and I liked working, right? So I love getting up at 4:30 in the morning and having tea at 5 and watching the sunrise. It's something that I just love doing. Other people would prefer to get up at 9. I'm the opposite. I've always loved to work. I think all this gray hair comes from that. And on Succession, it just seemed like it seemed like an opportunity for me to sort of challenge myself and to sort of maybe grow a little bit personally, challenge the innately, I would say, introverted part of myself, and force myself to sort of deal with actors and force myself to deal with, just become more vocal and more present on sets, forced to lead. And it was really what I took it as was a chance for personal growth and a chance to try something I hadn't tried in 20 years. Thank God it wasn't a total flop.
Oh no, you got an Emmy nomination. So
Yeah.
but you've directed 3 episodes of Succession, actually,
Yeah.
and you also directed an episode of Watchmen. You directed a few episodes of Brave New World, which is on
Yeah.
Peacock. Do you have the bug now? Do you want to prioritize kind of directing more over your
No,
cinematography work, or is it a balance?
it's a balance. I love them both. They challenge very different parts of me. Uh, I feel much more competent and confident as a cinematographer. Directed, but at the same time, both of them every morning when I get up and go to work, I'm constantly, you know, afraid and nervous, and you don't want to make mistakes. You want to do it right. And then when you're doing it, you sort of forget about all those, all the things in your head, and you just are. And I find myself very present when I'm on a set. Fully present, fully aware, fully, just doing and not thinking. But no, I love both of them, and I don't want to prioritize one over the other at all. I think right now I'm been doing, features and shooting features, shooting commercials, shooting a little bit of television, directing television. I think in almost all of the scenarios that I've directed, I've known the cast, at least for Succession and Watchmen, coming in as the DP, you get to sort of watch what's happening and sort of hang back, help the director as you should, and then you get a little bit of confidence just from being able to have sort of observed and seeing what's going on and seeing what the actors are like as human beings and what the crew is like and what they respond to. And so it was a nice way to sort of transition into directing both of those. And we'll see what comes next.
Well, it's interesting looking at the two shows that you were a part of this season, Succession and Watchmen, and how they're quite different from each other, but
Yeah,
they also both, I think, are very reflective of kind of what's happening in the world today.
strangely.
Um, yeah. So, do you have any thoughts on just what shows like that can do and what effect that they might have on a viewer, or do you not really think about the audience response?
For me, I've always chosen my projects for either their social impact or or um, the dramatic impact as stories. And it's incredible to me that both of these shows are so prescient, particularly Watchmen, with sort of bringing to light the Tulsa massacre, which I think I can't imagine it's ever been taught in the history books of the United States. But it's a part of our history that no one just seems to know about. Succession, I think, shines a light on the 1% of the 1%. And shows us that we are not that different, you know, that everyone has the same, that money doesn't solve any problems, it just probably creates them. And I think they're both mirrors to our society in an incredible way, and they're critical of who we are as Americans, where we are sort of in the world. And it's, for me, it's very important to bring those things to light and have people think and talk about them. Otherwise, you just don't get a chance to really reflect. And no, I'm really happy that basically all the work that I've done, I think, I hope has some social significance, and that's what I've been always attracted to, and I hope I'm able to keep doing that.
Yeah, I hope so. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrij, for talking to us today,
Of
and
course. Thank you.
absolutely good luck with the Emmys. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
the Emmys happen.
For those,
Yeah, it's on my birthday, so
oh wow, that would be a very nice birthday present, Emmy voters.
yeah.
But for those of you watching, hit like and subscribe for more interviews just like this, and go to goldderby.com to start making your Emmy predictions.
Thanks, guys.